to Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book Stretch and Release, a missing piece to a more pain free life. None other than Mr. Butch Phelps.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Good to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Boots on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I
Yes.
miss?
I'm actually a massage therapist who has gone in deep detail in studying the muscles of the human body, but the connection of the muscles to the brain. And I got into this because of my own back pain. I have dealt with some severe injuries in my past, and my muscles had gotten me in a bad spot when I was about 40 years old. And so I started digging into muscles as no one could seem to find relief. And the more I kept digging in, the more I started to realize that there was more to the story than what we were all being told about our muscles. And I started to study and learn about the emotional side of the muscles. And when I did, I was able to free myself of pain. And that was more than 20 years ago. And that pain has never come back. But
Hmm.
I've been able to teach people, thousands of people over that period of time all around the world, how to do this on their own so that they can actually stop their own pain. And that's been a real game changer. And so looking at muscles from more of a emotional and mechanical combined standpoint versus just mechanical has helped a lot of people stop their chronic pains.
Indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Boots. Thank you. Hoping for more empowering books like this to come. Let's talk about the missing piece. You title frames Stretch and Release as the missing piece. What common approaches the main relief or mobility does it complete to correct that you see most people overlooking?
The biggest thing I see is, like I said earlier, is that emotional side. So, you have a backache, you have a knee pain or an elbow pain, and you go to a doctor, and they're going to ask you basic questions of where does it hurt on a scale of 1 to 10. How much pain do you have? What movements cause that pain to happen? And then typically they follow up with, let's do an MRI or an X-ray to see what's happening. Well, two things are happening there. That's it's too bad because number one, as a practitioner, you're taught to look at the site of pain as the cause of pain. And then you teach the patient to do the same thing. And so, or if your elbow hurts, for instance, people think they have a damaged elbow, and chances are that's not true. What happens with the muscles, because we balance front to back and side to side, is that muscles on one side can be compressing and causing pain on the opposite side, number one. And then number two, the role of the brain on the emotional level literally can cause that pain to increase and last much longer. So what I do is I have learned over the years, and I teach people how to actually use their breath and use their brain to relax their muscles so that instead of lengthening muscles like we're told so many times, we're actually releasing the tension in the muscles, which is caused by everything you think, feel, and do. That's the biggest missing piece I found. And once you start to change that in people's minds and how they look at their bodies, all of a sudden, injuries that normally would take 6, 8, 9 months to correct, typically, you can correct them in 2 to 5 days.
So, Mr. Boots, you make a critical distinction between a muscle tissue that needs lengthening, the
Yes,
neurological tension that needs releasing. Can you
right.
unpack that for someone who spent years stretching but still feels tight?
Yes, exactly right. So, what happens in a typical person who's stretching, and we were all taught when we were younger, is that
Mm,
we pull that muscle as hard as we can because, again, we're envisioning that we're lengthening the muscle. We're going to make the muscle longer. And the reality is the muscle is attached on both ends, so it's never going to get any longer than it actually is.
yes.
But what happens is that every thought we have, every state of mind we're in, everything that we do creates tension in that muscle 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That tension then is pulling the ends of the muscles closer together because of the tension. And the best way to visualize that in your head is to take a rubber band and start to twist it, and you'll notice the rubber band gets shorter. And if I tried to stretch a shorter rubber band like that, it would be much harder to do than if I unwind it back out and pull the rubber band. Same thing is true in your muscles. Now, they don't twist like a rubber band, but the tension gets there, which is mimicked by that twisting. And so, whenever you have tight muscles and you're trying to stretch them, people wind up fighting with their brain, although they think they're fighting with their muscle. Their muscle's just reactive tissue to whatever's going on in the brain. And so, what they're actually doing when they're fighting with stretching and can't get results is they're fighting with their brain instead.
Yes, the brain itself. Mr. Butch, if you had to simplify, what is the core mistaken signal the body is sending when we feel chronic tightness? How does your
Yes.
method directly address the miscommunication?
Okay, great question. There's two ways of doing that. Number one is to help the person identify what part of their body is actually causing the pain. And like I said earlier, where the pain shows up doesn't necessarily mean that's the cause of the pain unless it's a trauma that you've had. Secondly, understanding that the muscle is not fighting with you and that you need to relax the mind so that the muscle tissue can relax itself as you stretch. Two things will happen there. You'll find that it's almost meditative. In fact, it's very much like a meditation, in that all you're doing is that you're putting just enough pressure on that muscle as you breathe out and let the brain relax to allow the muscle to relax. And as the muscle begins to relax, you'll see your foot, your leg, or your hand move further into the distance, the area that you want it to move into as that muscle starts to release. So it's very much a mind thing, although most people treat it as a muscle mechanical thing.
Mechanical thing. So, Mr. Boots, let's talk about the method and personal application.
Sure.
Beyond this stretch, what does the release component feel like physically and mentally compared to the active effort of stretching? How does
Yes.
someone know they move from stretching into releasing?
Right, right. So when you are stretching without the releasing, you're pulling really hard and you may feel exhausted by the time you're done. It may be very painful by the time you're done. And so that's why most people, when it comes to stretching, they can't sustain it because it becomes too much work. When we're talking about releasing the tension in the muscle, what we're doing is we're putting the muscle in a position so that as we relax our mind and relax our body, the muscle just lets go. And so the importance of that is that allowing the muscles to release that tension allows your joints to move through their full range of motion. And as they do that, that increases the lubrication in your joints and in your spine, which will then start to end the chronic pain that you're dealing with.
Yes, definitely. And the 60-second test. Is there one simple, safe assessment or movement from the book that can immediately show a listener the difference between a traditional stretch and the stretch and release approach?
Absolutely. In the very first part of the book, I go into detail about why the typical stretch leaves people wanting more and what is the missing piece. And we talk about that in that first third of the book so that people can get an idea that we're not just pulling muscles, we're releasing tension in the body. And then we get into why do most treatments that they've been trying either come up short or they fail, and so they get an idea of, okay, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried the other, didn't really work for a very long time. So they have a clear understanding of what went wrong. And then lastly, I have the last third of the book gets into specific types of chronic pain. And there's QR codes there that they can actually scan and get to the videos to help them better understand what I'm talking about in the book. So they can start to help things like back pain or neck pain or foot pain, those kind of things.
Mr. Boots, the most overlooked spot, in your experience, what is the surprisingly common areas of tension, like the jaw, diaphragm, feet, that we or when released creates the most dramatic cascade and relief elsewhere in the body?
Exactly. So probably the number one thing I see is low back pain. And a typical client will come in and talk about their back is fine as long as they're sitting or they're laying down. But the minute they get up, they're in all kinds of pain. And then when they take a few steps, the pain subsides and they feel better until they
Mm.
have to sit down again. And so the number one problem there is that they think there's a back issue. So they're treating the back with back braces and all kinds of lotions and potions and injections and pills and so forth. But the reality is that what happens is the muscles on the front of their thighs are usually tight. And it's usually tight from sitting a lot. Maybe you're lifting things a lot. Even if you lift it the correct way, the muscles on the front of the thighs will tighten. And because they attach into the back side of the pelvis, when you stand up, it causes the pelvis to tilt forward, which increases the compression in the lower part of the back, causing pain. Once you spend about 5 or 10 minutes stretching out those muscles on the front of the thighs each day, what you'll find is you'll get up with zero pain after about 2, 3 days.
We love that. Zero pain, Mr. Butch. So, pain versus discomfort. How do you guide people to differentiate between the good discomfort of a beneficial release and the bad pain of potential causing harm?
That's a great question. When you start to use, I'll use a yoga strap, but you could use a rope or anything that's not elastic. When you start to move your body part, you what you want to do is when you first begin to feel the tension, you want to stop and hold that for about 5 to 6 seconds. When you're going to breathe out, but what you're focusing on is the muscle that you are stretching to release. You want to feel that muscle relaxing. If you start to pull this and you're pulling really, really hard and the pain increases and increases and increases, you're 99% sure you're going to create an injury there or a spasm in that muscle. And so, what we want to do is, again, you want to go back to that relaxed state so that as I start to, let's say, if I'm stretching a hamstring, for instance, and I'm lifting my leg up with that strap, I want to feel like is when I first feel that tension, is that's when I'm going to breathe out, hold it for that 5 seconds, let the brain see that it's safe, and then I release it and let the leg go back down. I'll come back up and I'll do it 10 times. And that 10 times, each time you come up, you're showing the brain this is a safe movement and I'm not going to hurt myself. And then once the brain sees that, it just releases and lets it go.
Hmm. Well, let it go, let it go. We love that, Mr.
Yes.
Butch.
Yes.
The reader's journeys and mindset shift. Our fitness culture often rewards pushing through. How do you help high achievers or athletes shift their mindset from conquering their muscles to communicating with them?
Exactly. That's usually the toughest group that's out there because they're so used to just blasting through barriers. And so it takes a little extra effort when I'm working with them because I want them to see that when they're doing the stretch and release, it's not the same thing as when they're doing their fitness programs to get into shape. And so one of the things I always describe to them is like when you think about putting gas in your car, which would be like strength training, you're creating power for that car. When you talk about stretch and release, you're like putting oil in the engine for lubrication. Both have two very different jobs, but leave one out and the car stops. And so that's usually a good analogy that I start with them to let them know this is two very different things with two very different mindsets. And it usually takes about 2 to 3 visits for them to get it. And then once they get that, or if I'm online with them, once they get that, then they can start to shift their mind from one to the other. But it takes about 2 to 3 times working with them to get them to do that.
Hmm. So, Mr. Butch, let's talk about the 80-20 rule. For someone feeling overwhelmed with one or two stretch and
Yeah,
release sequence, what do you say deliver 80% of the benefit for the most common modern posture like sitting at a desk?
yeah, yeah. Well, there's a total of about 125 stretches, which always overwhelms people when they first hear that. And I always say to them, there's 2, 3 areas of your body that you really want to focus on. The calves are one because the bending of the ankle determines how straight the body stands. Because if a person can't bend their ankle when they walk, they will tend to lead with their nose, and that can lead to problems like upper back pain, mid back pain, or even knee pain. The second one is going to be the front of the thighs, which would be known as the quads. Like I was somewhat earlier, the quads, when they get tight, will tilt the pelvis forward and again will cause the upper body to lean forward. You've seen that in a lot of older people will do that. And most time people think that's an age thing, but that's really the quad are tight on that person, and that's causing them to stand like that. And then lastly, doing the outside of the chest, you can do that in a doorway. These three would probably take you 15 minutes a day to do. But by that outside chest muscles, when they get tight, it causes the shoulders to round in, which will cause pain on the back of the neck, cause pain down between the shoulder blades. Now, these three areas are important because for most of us today, we sit behind computers and we work at a desk and we sit more than we've ever done. And so those three areas create the most pain in the human body. If you did those three every day, you could probably eliminate 75% of most chronic pain.
What was the most common point of frustration for people when they first try this method? And what is your key piece of advice to move past it?
Yes. So the most common thing is being able to relax the mind. It's very common, especially in the States here, where people are on the go all the time and they're overstimulated a lot. And so for them to sit there and focus on just their calf muscles or to focus on their thigh muscles or whatever, it becomes very difficult because they have 1,000 different things running through their head. So I'll spend a lot of time with them just getting them familiar with just feeling their body. Breathing, we'll go through breathing exercises and just show them how to just feel the body as they're sitting there. That usually takes quite a few, not a, quite a few tries, but a few tries for them to be able to get that. And then once they start to see it and see the results, then it becomes easier and easier. But it's something they have to work on for a while because most people just aren't used to just relaxing their mind.
Relax the mind. Well, definitely, we need to relax our mind.
Yep.
So, Mr. Boots, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short-term goals is to get this book in as many people's hands as possible. I like to think of it as it's a manual to the muscle system in your body, how it works. It'll give you a different perspective on your muscles versus what we've normally been taught our whole lives. Long-term goals is that I want to continue to reach out across the world globally with online help for people doing weekly Q&As, doing live demos, and teaching people how to really do this on their own. They don't necessarily need to see somebody all the time. You can learn these are pretty simple things to do, but it's a matter of taking the time each day to do that. I typically spend about 15, 20 minutes in the morning with the stretch and release, and I'll spend 15, 20 minutes in the evening with the stretch and release. And so at 65, I wake up with no pain. I can't say that for my whole life because at 40, I was in a lot of pain.
Hmm.
And it's like by doing this on a continual basis, I relax my mind and I relax my body. So the goal is really to start, I would, for lack of a better term, a movement of people who learn how to take care of their own muscles to solve their chronic pain.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Boots, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
So the thing is that when you find something that you believe in and you become passionate because it's like to see somebody have pain for 5 or 6 months and you can show them something and they come back in 2 to 3 days and that pain is diminished anywhere from 50% to 100%. To see the smile on their face, to see the relief on their face is priceless. I mean, there's no amount of money you could make that would replace that anywhere. But the thing is that when you can take something like this and start changing the way the world has to live and making the world a better place than you found it, that's the sweet spot. And for me, it was like learning how to do this, and it was something that life gave to me because I was not in the healthcare business prior to getting into this before I was 40. And it sort of found me. And so over the last 20 plus years, I've done a lot of research on it, done a lot of work with it. And I just have been amazed at how it's changed people's lives.
Hmm. Yes, definitely. And thank you for that advice. Mr. Butch, and can you please recommend a book that influenced your journey?
Yes, there is a book called Metabolical. It's about how the food that we eat, how it affects our bodies. I'm more of a health or muscle nerd. So for me, it's like the food that I put in my body is so important as to what output does my body have. And in that book, the doctor who wrote it is very good at putting into simplified terms how food is actually affecting your body and why you shouldn't eat certain foods and why you should eat others. And so I would say for most people, start there. It's there's three major pillars to healthy aging, and we're all aging. I don't care if we're 5 or if we're 95. We're all aging day to day. The three pillars are you want to keep your strength because most people as they get older lose their strength. You want to maintain their flexibility, and then lastly, you want to put good nutrition in your body so your body can build and be strong as you get older.
Build your body. Yes, definitely. Thank you for the recommended book, Mr. Boots. So, how do you recommend that people weave this practice into a fabric of their day without it becoming another chore? Is it
Yeah.
morning ritual, a desk break, or evening unwind?
So I do both, and I know sometimes that may sound like a lot. So let me explain why I do both and why I say spend 15 or 20 minutes at a time doing it. Our brain is firing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So in the morning time, I do it because at night when we sleep, some of us will have dreams, some of us may roll around in bed, and our muscles will get tight from that. Our brain doesn't know the difference between what is perceived and what is in reality. So it's going to react the same way regardless of which way it is. So that morning stretch gets my body loose, gets the blood flowing, allows me to get up and get ready to go so that I can work my day. The evening stretch right before I go to bed, I found to be very important because we've gone through a whole day of making decisions and doing things and having all kinds of feelings during the day. And that allows me before I go to bed to almost draw a curtain on the day, relax my mind, relax my body so that I can sleep better once I go to sleep at night. And if a person is out there, someone who has leg cramps, for instance, at night when they sleep, what I found was is that doing the calf stretches before I go to sleep, for instance, reduces, if not eliminate, those leg cramps on a daily basis. So that would be my suggestion to them. Don't make it overwhelming because it's not like what you do when you go to the gym. This is about learning to quiet the mind so you can quiet the body.
Quiet the mind and relax. Take a deep
Yes,
breath.
yes, we all need
Must
that.
Yeah, so Mr. Bush, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season as well. Comedy 101 in third season, and food 101 in sixth season. Two, Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101 Review, Music 101 of fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in its third season, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, My Bible Verses 101 are my baby podcasts. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Butch, if your philosophy become widely adopted, how do you envision it changing our broader approach to fitness, workplace ergonomics, and even we teach kids to move?
Yes, we would stop a lot of surgeries for joint replacements and back surgeries. We would create a lot less stress in our lives every day by teaching kids to move. What we're doing is preparing them for older age. So what we would see in the long run is people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s would be moving a lot more like people today are moving in their 50s and 60s. I truly believe that. I mean, like I said, I'm 65 and I know what it's done for me. So, yes, that's where I would stand with that.
Yes, and thank you so much, Mr. Bush, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support Strats and Release?
Yes. So yes, so please support this show. This is a great show, great way to get it out there. Anytime you need to get in touch with me, you can check out my YouTube channel, The Muscle Repair Shop, or you can go to my website, musclerepairshop.com, and I'll be happy to talk to anyone anytime.
Yes, people, less about Mr. Boots Phelps, because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering stress and release will rise. So I have one more question now, Mr. Boots. The process seems to require a degree of mindfulness and patience. Did you develop the system, change how you manage stress or emotional challenges of the night?
Yeah, it did really for me as well. What I did was by learning how to quiet my mind, it reduced a tremendous amount of stress in my body, allowed me to sleep better at night, digest my food better during the day, and it gave me an overall health program that just changed my life. And so today at 65, I feel like I'm about 35 or 40.
Definitely. Yes. So, Mr. Boots, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm glad I could be here. Thank you.
Likewise. More to come, people. See you soon.